Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, what's going on, sir? How are you this fine evening, fine day, whatever?
Fine fall evening.
It is.
Yeah.
It is fall indeed. It's November, man. We are recording on the first eve of November.
And it was Halloween last night.
Yeah.
And I heard what you were, and I'm wondering how it went.
I was just thinking, and you're still in costume.
Right. Yes, I am. This is who I am, both in real life and in pretend life.
Right. Yeah, so I didn't actually dress up last night.
Oh, really? That's not what I heard.
What'd you hear?
So when we were at the chili cook-off, I heard.
All right.
I heard that you were going to be Tinkerbell. Did you? You know, I didn't ask a lot of questions.
Tinkerbell. No, where'd that come from?
I heard it from your club buddies.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You can't even say that with a straight face. Yes. You know that's horse shit.
How was Tinkerbell? Was that,
Huh?
I'm just kidding.
All right, sorry. I'm trying to light this pipe.
I had an evil mask on though, and I was scaring the little children that came by at the house last night.
Nice.
And it was fun.
How'd that make
I
you
like
feel?
it.
How'd that make you feel scaring little children?
Made me feel good. Made me feel strong and powerful. Yeah.
Okay. We don't have trick-or-treaters come up to our house.
You have a
It's a
long,
little ways
steep
off the
and
road.
winding driveway.
You only come here with intention.
Right.
Yeah, you don't happen upon my house.
Right. I understand.
Yeah, and you might get halfway down the driveway and think, maybe I shouldn't be here. And I think that happens because we've, in the 20 plus years we've lived here, had like a handful of trick-or-treaters, and it was people that we knew that called us in advance and said they were coming.
That's the way to do it. But it was a beautiful night. There was lots of fun kids doing their thing, and I enjoyed watching it. There's not a better day. I mean, I may be Christmas, but you get to run around.
Oh yeah.
And get free candy.
Right. As long as they're still at those ages where they're doing that, right? Engaging in innocent behavior.
Right.
And I think we talked earlier about those teenagers when they
Right.
start, having struggles with whether or not they're going to be decent human beings or not, and evidencing that behavior and struggle to the public.
Right. Anyway, beautiful fall weather. It's I love it. I love the fall. The leaves are turning. It's beautiful. And I'm happy. That's it. I'm a happy man. All good.
You're making me laugh, man. Flashing back to that video that I showed you after you said you were happy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's you have to go out and search it. My one of my son-in-laws sent it to me. It's a link to a TikTok video, and it was a guy performing somewhere in character, and he was doing so in a French accent, and when he was talking about happiness. When Kevin said he was happy, it caused me to think of this video, right? When this actor is talking about happiness in this French accent, it pretty much sounds exactly like a penis. I want everyone to have happiness. Happiness.
Right.
Yeah. So I want happiness to touch everyone, and everyone to touch happiness.
Right.
Yeah. So it was funny, and I'm sure that. Well, I'm absolutely 100% positive he did a way better job than I did. But if you can find that, it's funny. Check it out.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed it.
And you had to say it again because it made me laugh.
Happiness. Happiness.
Right.
Well,
all right.
Speaking of I don't know. Speaking of something, it's your topic tonight.
It is. It is. I think it's a good topic. I think it'll be an interesting topic.
I liked it.
Something
I liked it very much.
Yeah, just kind of happened upon me, based on an experience I had with my email inbox.
Okay.
Strangely enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny where you get your inspiration from. Everybody, not just you, but I mean everybody. Something happens, and next thing you know, we're doing a podcast on it.
Yeah, it's like the wheels are always turning, and so at least in my mind, the wheels are always turning, and and I have that lens that I'm looking at the world through, right? So what's going to make a good podcast topic,
right?
And what information can we pass along to folks that are listening and watching that would be beneficial, and that's where this came from. I guess we should call out the topic.
Yeah, what is it? Yeah.
So the topic, and I want to make sure I look at this so I get it exactly right. Triage your life, adopting a priority mindset. And, I think most people are familiar with the term triage and what that means. And it's most commonly used in the medical community, right? So you triage patients as they come into an ER or at a mass casualty incident. And you identify, based on the severity of their injuries, what order they're going to be cared for. And so when I was looking at my inbox because I'd been away I work remotely anyways, but I'd been at a trade show, and I always enjoy going to these trade shows, and then you come back and you have to pay for it because your inbox may have not been something you could pay a whole lot of attention to while you were there, and now you got to find the bottom of that thing again, which is always a little bit challenging. But it struck me when I started looking at it, and this has come to mind before, but I've never really thought of it in these terms, right? So it struck me, I got these 30, 50 emails, whatever, and I'm like, so do I start at the top? I think that's what people generally. That's the tendency, right? So you're going to look at the first one and then work your way backwards. Well, that's really, not the right way to go about it. And I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way, but if you think about it, logic, it's my way that I'm talking through here. But if you think about it, those ones that are on the top, they just got there, right? So they're really the last ones in line, or should be. You should start at the bottom. But then, you never know what's in the middle, right? You start at the bottom. What if there's something really important in the middle?
Right.
And so, this triage thing jumped into my head. And really, you need to do that with your inbox, right? So you need to triage that thing and figure out, okay, well, this is the oldest one here. So ideally, I should respond to this one first. However, it's talking about something that's not all that important and doesn't, require a whole lot of action. And there's one, 5 lines above it that is a tremendous opportunity, or, a critical email that I really need to take care of right now, needs my immediate attention. And so you don't want to spend time on that one down here that's the oldest one just because it's the oldest one, when there might be something that's a much greater priority further up in the box. And so that's where this whole idea of triaging your life, because I'm looking at that as about the inbox, and then I was like, well, you could actually apply this to your daily activities, right? Why not?
Right.
So that's what got the gears turning.
Okay. The thing that I liked about the selection of the word triage, when I first heard the title, or when I first read it, I guess you texted it to me, the only concept that I really thought about with triage was medical, was combat decisions to figure out how to treat wounded patients and so on. And so when I looked at secondary meaning of it, it talked about, it assigns a degree of urgency. So there's 2 things I like about the word. One is the prioritization, and it assigns a sense of urgency. So those 2 elements. And when you think about your life in general, those are 2 really important things to consider, is what is the priority, and how do you get there? And we can talk about that a little bit tonight, and I wrote some strategies down. But also, I like the sense of urgency. Like, you can't let this wait. You got to get on it right away.
Right.
And there's a balance, though, and the balance to that is you can't just do everything because that's urgent all the time, because it's urgent for you to do your time card. And if you don't do your time card, who's going to die?
Yeah, if everything's urgent, if everything's an emergency, if everything's a priority, then nothing is a priority, an emergency, or urgent.
So you have to balance the urgent and the important.
Right.
And that's all part of the question process that you go through when you are triaging. And your subtitle, Adopting a Priority Mindset. I just think the title all by itself, you need to adopt a priority mindset in what you're doing in your life. And I don't think a lot of people do it. I don't think a lot do. And
no, I would agree with you. I think that a lot of times people operate in life like they're playing baseball, and they're just either hitting or swinging at every pitch that's thrown their way, and instead of figuring out, hey, is this a pitch that even deserves my attention?
Right.
Or is this one I really need to focus on, so I need to knock this out of the park?
Right.
You gotta figure out what those things are. Don't just swing at it or give it attention because it's a pitch and you're standing at the plate.
Absolutely. What actions and activities are most in need of your attention? That's what you just said, but I had that note written down there and I wanted to say it. Yeah, the thing is, you're looking at all the things going on in your life, and I'll talk about men for a second. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a friend, you're a club member, you are a professional, you have a job, you have something in the community there's a lot of pulls and demands on your time.
Right.
And you have to decide, where am I going to put my time? And if you don't approach all of that with intention, as you like to say, then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, wow, I have been busy as hell, but I've not really gotten anything important accomplished because I didn't take the time to think about where am I headed? What are my lifetime goals? What kind of things are important to me? What's going to hurt me if I don't address it?
Right.
If I don't take care of it. Am I drifting? Why am I drifting? Just kind of drifting through life. What is the best use of my time right now? We did a whole podcast on the next one. What is your why? Why are you doing this? The bigger the why, the bigger the try, right? And so these are the sort of the mental checklist, the habit that you need to get into.
Yeah, and if you don't identify what your priority is, and I use that in a singular form, right? Because I think you can have more than one priority. I'm just not sure you can have more than one. So that term, actually, there's literature out there that talks about when that term changed from the singular version to the plural version, and it wasn't until like the 1940s or something. It may have been earlier than that.
Of triage?
No, priority.
Oh, priority. Okay.
And being used in a plural term.
Huh. Okay.
Because it was always, what's the priority? And I think that we still operate that way. And at the same time, we've gotten to a point in our society where we use it in a plural form, and so you end up with a situation where all of a sudden everything's a priority. Like I said a little while ago, and when everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Right.
So you have to, use that triage methodology and identify, which ones are the highest priority, because there can really only be one that is the highest priority.
Right.
And if you adopt that, like in the medical community, they use, and I don't know if this is like a standard across the entire medical community as far as a color coding for triage, but I did come across that in doing a little research on this topic, and I think that if you do your life the same way, so one of the ones I came across was the color coding system of 4 colors, right? So black is someone that is injured so severely it's not a survivable situation. They may not have passed yet, but they're going to, and there's nothing that can be done to stop it.
Right.
So those are folks that, unfortunately, you have to just, put aside, because nothing you do is going to help them. And anything that you do is going to take away from somebody else that you could be helping that needs it and that could benefit from it.
Those are tough calls. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then the next category is that red category where these people are critically injured and it's life-threatening. They're very serious.
Right.
And below that is yellow, somebody that's seriously injured, but it's not life-threatening. And then green is somebody that's a minor injury. And if you think about that, if you want to take that template and overlay it onto your life and things that you need to be involved in, you just figure out what are those things that are in that black category, things that are way beyond your control potentially, or things that you just don't need to be fooling with, because there's absolutely no good that's going to come from it. And it's a complete waste of your time and energy and so on. And you got to identify what those are. And it may be a relationship you have with somebody, or it might be a sideline activity that you've been engaging in or whatnot, and finally you realize that, hey, this is not something that's adding value to my life, and in fact it's taking value away from other aspects of my life. And so figure that out and make that call, and then identify those other things that are critical in nature. So the red category would be those critical things that are absolutely urgent, need your attention, and things that you absolutely have to do. The lesser category from that would be things that are, important, but not necessarily critical or urgent and don't need your attention right now. And then those things that would be in the green category would be things that you like to do, maybe should do, but don't rise to the level to be in either of those other categories.
Yeah. And don't carry all that much importance either.
Right.
They're kind of in the nice to category.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And that's, and some other things that fall into there are, for consideration are, your return on investment, right? So how much time are you going to spend and what's going to come back at you because of it? I'm not, when you talk about ROI or return on investment, it's not always monetary. It can come in many different forms.
Right.
So, figure out what that is and then decide whether or not that's something that you need to engage in. And then there was another incredible thought that was about to pop out in verbal form, and it just disappeared.
Gone.
It was brilliant, I tell you.
I can't wait for it to come back.
I'm going to look at my notes here because I know it was a follow-on from what I was just talking about.
Okay.
And there it is. So using the example of understanding where to spend your time and how to spend your time, I want to go back to the discussion about strengths and weaknesses, and how I think we've talked about this, about you take something that you're really good at, and you spend this much time every day working on it, you're going to get this much better at it. Conversely, if you take something that you suck at and you spend this much time every day working on it, you're going to get about this much improvement potentially.
Okay.
So it's one of those things you have to decide, is this a critical thing? Is this weakness that you want to work on or need to work on? Is it something that you absolutely have to do? Is it driving? Yeah. So, if you have to drive and you suck at it, then we would encourage you to get better and spend whatever time you need to get better at that. But if it's not something that's critical and you have to include it, then maybe focus on other things that you are good at and make yourself even better at those.
Yeah. Yeah. And
sorry,
so,
I went off on a rant there.
No,
for a while.
that was good. And I'll just sort of transition it to in my mind, a logical next phase of the conversation, and that is, when you take the time to triage or to have a priority mindset, there are certain habits that you need to put in place that cause this to be much easier over time. Establishing a new habit is never easy to start with, but once you got it, then it does get easy. And so if you, whatever your time frame is, once a week, once a day, once every couple days, take the time to really think about, because I think this is everything's connected to everything else. And so again, who are you? Where are you going? What are you doing? What do you want to accomplish in your life? If you're not using those questions as filters to help you have a priority mindset, and you're not reviewing them on a regular basis, you're not in the habit of reviewing them, then all of a sudden you're going to wake up and 2 weeks have gone by,
right,
and you haven't done anything that you really wanted to get focused on.
Yeah, you've been working on some important stuff. It just wasn't yours.
Right. There you go.
Right. Because you were working on somebody else's because you hadn't identified what yours are.
Right. And you do that after enough time and it becomes a habit, then you actually start to feel uncomfortable when you're not doing it. That's actually a very good sign. And I love, we've said this quote before, Aristotle quote. I gotta think of it to make sure. Excellence. I'm going to look it up. I was going to try to do it. Okay. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. So if you are in the habit of having a priority mindset and having actual actions and activities that you routinely are in the habit of carrying out, it will reduce stress in your life and it will increase the productivity of your everyday. And that's to me another huge benefit. And I know when I make a list and I prioritize it, which I do often, and I'll look at all the stuff that's kind of on the bottom of my list, and it can stress me out. Like, I'm not going to get to this. I just know I'm not going to get to this. But what happens is a day or two later, you go, wow, I didn't need to get to that. And so that's when you know you're getting pretty good at making your priorities the way they should be. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're not doing this right now, don't feel like you have to master the art on the first attempt or the first couple attempts if this is not yet a habit. Do a little bit here. Just get started with it. Get started with establishing a habit that enables you to prioritize your life and have that mindset and say, man, I got to do this. Otherwise, once again, drifting through life, people drift, and that's just a hard thing to look back on.
Yeah. Drifting's fun if you're doing it in a motor vehicle or something like that, but not in life.
Or a hang glider.
Yeah. Hey, will you repeat that Aristotle quote?
We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, it's a habit.
Yeah. So when you said that, it caused me to think of the conversation we had, I think last week, about discipline and how, people will say that you need discipline in your life. No, you need discipline long enough to create the habit.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
And that's where the success comes from, is the habit that you create.
Right.
When you have the discipline to put the time in to develop that habit. Right.
So I think it's an area that everybody can improve on in their lives and decide that they're going to establish these habits. And the habits, this whole thing about habits create your destiny. It's almost such a cliche thing to just sort of throw out there. But oh my goodness, it is so true. And it ain't, it does take some discipline to stick with it. But once you get it, it ain't hard. It really isn't. It's not hard once you get to it.
Yeah. So I think that we can't have this conversation without talking about your own personal values.
Okay.
And how those have to be factored in here, right? So you have to, identify what things are a priority and what things are not based on your values.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would maybe have them as kind of the litmus test when you go through and identify these things that you believe are priority things in your life that you have to work on. Then I would take those and go over here and look at your values and see if there's alignment. Because if you say that, for instance, family is an important thing to you, and your list of things that are a priority to you over here don't have anything to do with family. Absolutely nothing. In fact, one after the next take time away from family. Then you have to figure out, is family actually a value of yours, or is it not? And because your behavior is showing that maybe it's not, or what's happening is your behavior is causing internal conflict, and you just haven't realized, or maybe you haven't put the your finger on that button to figure out that's exactly what it is. So you just play them back and forth against one another and make sure that whatever you're doing over here aligns with what you say you care about, because when they're in misalignment, what's in the middle is just internal turmoil that you don't want to experience. And I'm not talking about that from a theory-based knowledge. I'm talking about that based on personal experience.
Yeah. Got the bumps and bruises to show for your past experience. I love it. I don't know if you saw, I was writing it down on my list of questions that you ask yourself, and maybe when you are establishing the habit, and maybe you don't, maybe many folks I suspect don't have written down what their values are. And values can change and probably even should change at various points in your life. But if you write them down, something's magic. And the first question you can say is, based on all the things that are on my plate, how do these line up with my values? Just what you said. And then you continue. Where am I headed? What are my lifetime goals? What's gonna hurt me if I don't deal with it? Am I drifting? What is the best use of my time right now? You ask yourself those questions, stuff starts falling off the plate.
Yep.
It does, because it's not getting the right answer to come back, and then
Right.
you go, okay, I don't need to be dealing with this one right now.
Right.
And,
And if you're not doing that now or something like it, then you're potentially spending a lot of time doing stuff that's really not all that important to you and probably not aligned with your values. And probably not creating a whole lot of personal satisfaction for you either.
Yep. And here's another aspect of it, and this is stuff that you've talked about before: setting boundaries and saying no.
Oh, yeah.
Those are two things that are a big part of this whole idea of having a priority mindset, because there's a lot of people who will just say, I'll help, I'll do it, I'll volunteer, I'll jump up, I raise my hand, I want to be a team player, I want to be involved. And they're the ones who are involved in all kinds of stuff, but end up not really being all that productive.
Right.
Because they haven't said no and they haven't established those boundaries, and it's hard to do.
Right.
Sometimes you piss people off.
Yeah,
when
they're
you say
wearing
no.
themselves out, but
Right.
it's not sustainable over the long haul, right? So you got to, and I've said this before, you got to take care of yourself, and not in a selfish way, in a self, what word am I looking for here? Preserving way, right? I mean, really, that's what you're doing. You're taking time to care for yourself so that you can continue to do those things for others and serve others, etc. Because it's not sustainable if you're not putting some gas back in your tank.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course the reality is you got to be flexible in all this stuff, because you start down with great intention, this path. I'm going to prioritize. I'm going to do all this stuff, and then as soon as you got your list of priorities established, and you're using that as filter to decide when new things come along, then the world changes. Something else comes up. I'm just thinking, yeah, the world changes. Some event happens, and what you were going to do is no longer your priority because something else replaced it, appropriately so, depending on what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to circle back to the beginning of this conversation, because one thing I didn't mention is we have so many things going on in our lives today. People talk about just being incredibly busy or crazy busy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good place to be, right? So when you're in, I would call that crisis mode. You might not be all that effective, because what's happening there is you're responding out of things like emotion, and you're really not at your best. I think what you need to operate in is more of a ready mode, if you will, kind of a reactionary mode, that response mode that I talk about with E plus R equals O.
Yeah.
That's where you need to live, in that ready to respond category, and make sure that you're evaluating things as they come in, and then following with the appropriate response to generate the outcome that you're looking for.
Yep.
So yeah, don't be just running around like a cat chasing its tail, because that feels busy as hell, and you go to bed at night worn out, feeling like, wow, I just I tore it up today, and really all you did was chase your damn tail.
Yeah. Yep. One of the things that I thought of when I was contemplating this topic today was, sometimes, maybe more often than we'd like to admit, if we have something that's important but really big, like a really big important thing to do that has multiple components and dimensions, you just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off because it's just too big. Even though you can say, this is a high priority for me and I need to get this done, but then you get discouraged by saying, it's just too big. I mean, how do I eat this elephant one bite at a time?
Right.
That's the statement. But the thing is, that's really true.
Right.
And if you take that huge thing that you're wrestling with and you keep kicking the can down the road and you chunk it down into little bitty pieces and say, I'm just going to take this little piece today.
Right.
And then I'm going to take a little piece tomorrow.
What's that one thing? What one thing can you do right now or today to further your progress towards that?
Right. And yeah. And so that's why importance has to be a key part of the decision-making process and making these priorities. And we've talked about it, but the only reason I say that, you reminded me of it when you said, we're so crazy busy. And the reason we're so crazy busy is because we're overwhelmed with information coming at us. And so everything is urgent. All this stuff. Oh my, I gotta respond to this email before the end of the day. Or I gotta respond to this email within the next hour. Well, what would happen really if you didn't?
I don't know.
Seriously.
Well, I mean, hitting the delete button is a response.
It's a response.
And sometimes it's the appropriate response.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. But you can just, and I think that's what a lot of people get caught up in is they really do all of these urgent things, neglecting the important. And I'll stop saying it because I've said it like 4 times here. But to me, that's important. Which is what I keep repeating.
Absolutely. You know, and interestingly enough, the one thing that hasn't come up in this conversation is time management, because time management is a misnomer. It's a fallacy. It doesn't actually exist. It's smoke and mirrors. So if you're ever thinking about spending money attending a time management class, just save your money and learn how to create different priorities in your life. Figure out what the most important ones are and work on those, because that's the magic. There's no such thing as time management. It's prioritization of things that you need to do in your life.
Right. Keep track of what you're doing, write it down, track your progress. You'll feel good about that. And that reinforces what you're striving for, which is a more organized, less stressful life. This reduces stress when you have the discipline to do this. When you create the habit to do this, all of a sudden you realize, wow, I'm not nearly as stressed out as I used to be, because you're working on the right stuff. And psychologically, that's a huge benefit. So there you go.
Yeah. So here's the first priority for everyone that's listening or watching this. Find that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening or watching on, and hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified when we put out any new episodes, which is every week.
This is important and urgent that this
Yes.
be done, because
it might not be the highest priority on your list, but it needs to be really close to the top. All right. Well, I enjoyed the discussion, man.
I did too.
Good
Very
stuff.
much, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Well done.
All right. Well, I'm going to hit this little button here, and then I'm going to say something to you to this effect, all right? No matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.